Hey students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is the square deal, and here are your objectives. Please pause the video, look these questions over, and get ready to copy some vocab terms and take some notes. Here is Teddy Roosevelt, who you learned about in class. Roosevelt represented the spirit of the progressive era because, unlike past presidents, he disagreed with the idea of laissez-faire, and he believed that the government should play an active role in addressing social problems. Roosevelt campaigned on a reform program that he called the Square Deal. He told Americans that if they voted for him, he would use his power to reform social problems. The Square Deal promoted three specific goals, which Roosevelt called the 3 C's. The first C stood for consumer protection. This meant that consumers, the people who buy products, should know exactly what it is they're buying. Roosevelt was partly responding to Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, which had described how unsanitary the meat was that consumers were eating. So Roosevelt wanted to pass laws making sure that meat and other products were prepared safely and that people could trust what they were buying. The second C stood for control of corporations, and it addressed the problem of monopolies. Roosevelt promised to break up the monopolies into many different businesses so that there would be more competition. And the last C stood for conservation, which means protecting nature and the environment. Conservation is related to control of corporations, the second C, because at this time, corporations were gobbling up America's natural resources in order to produce goods and make a profit. And in the process, they were polluting the environment and ruining nature. So Roosevelt, in his third C, promised to stop this. So those are the 3 C's. Today, we're going to focus on the first C, consumer protection. Upton Sinclair's The Jungle caused a scandal when it came out, and in response to The Jungle, Congress passed 2 major consumer protection laws. The first law was called the Pure Food and Drug Act, and it said that any product that entered the human body, like food or medicine, had to have an accurate list of ingredients. This prevented companies from falsely advertising their products. Because of this law, all foods and medicines today have an ingredients list like the one you see here. Another law that was passed at the same time was the Meat Inspection Act. The Meat Inspection Act required that meat packing factories be sanitary and that the ingredients on all meat products be accurately labeled. Finally, government workers were authorized to go into factories and inspect the conditions in order to make sure that companies were following the law. Notice that this was a Consumer Protection Act. It was meant to help consumers, but it did nothing to fix the dangerous working conditions that Sinclair had described in The Jungle. Sinclair was a socialist. That means he believed that workers were being exploited by business owners. And his whole purpose in writing The Jungle was to expose the terrible conditions that workers dealt with, so that those conditions could be reformed. But sadly, for Sinclair, both the public and the government paid little attention to his description of workers, and instead were mostly outraged by his descriptions of the unsanitary meat. "I aimed for the public's heart," Sinclair said, "but I hit it in the stomach." Poor Sinclair and poor meatpacking workers. All right, now it's time to review the objectives. If you don't know the answer to any of them, just rewind the video and look again. I'll see you in class. Bye, students.